with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act, the Highland Park Board of Education has given adequate notice of this meeting by having published the date, time, and place of this meeting in the Home News Tribune and has posted notice of this meeting at Bartle School, 435 Mansfield Street, Highland Park, New Jersey. Linda, could we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Aversa?
Here.
Ms. Berkowitz?
Here.
Ms. Bull?
Here.
Ms. Simarusti?
Here.
Mr. Dietz?
Here.
Mr. Ross?
Here.
Ms. Scherber?
Here.
Mr. Sherman?
Here.
Mr. Wharton?
Could everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could I have a motion to approve the minutes, the special public meeting April 24th and the regular public and executive session meeting from May 19th?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? No discussion.
Okay. Ms. Aversa?
Yes.
Ms. Berkowitz?
Yes.
Ms. Bull?
Yes.
Ms. Simarusti?
Yes.
Mr. Dietz?
Yes to April 24th and abstain to the other one.
May 19th.
May 19th, abstain to May 19th.
Okay. Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Scherber?
Yes.
Mr. Sherman?
Yes.
Linda, were there any communications?
The board did receive a smattering of emails, not too many since the last meeting. And I'm going to give my two plugs that I'll be giving for quite a while. The first is that the school board candidacy is now open for anyone interested in picking up a petition. They can pick up a nominating petition with the county clerk or in the business office of the Bartle School. The deadline for filing a petition is July 28th for the November election. Also, for the board members, the annual New Jersey School Boards Association workshop will be held October 28th to 30th in Atlantic City. If anyone is interested in attending, please contact me or my administrative assistant. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Tim?
Student update?
This Thursday was the senior prom, and it was very successful, and there were no conflicts at all. And on Wednesday, the kids in the physics, both AP and honors and regular, just regulars and AP went to Six Flags, as well as the students in DECA. So there was about 1/4 of the entire school that went on the trip, and it was also very successful, and everyone had a great time. And in the physics league group, the team won 6th place in the state on one of the most recent competitions, and one student, Shu Hong Chen, he actually placed in top 10 in the entire state, and yeah, they've been very successful.
Also, the senior trip is this Thursday and Friday, so we're going on a cruise and going to Dorney Park, so that should be fun. Also, NHS induction is June 9th, which I think is a Monday, and senior award night is June 10th. Also, finals begin June 17th. And also, some students, as well as myself, were still wondering about the scheduling and if that was going to change. So I'd like some information about that.
And right now, again, there is no information that we can provide as far as a schedule change going into next year.
So it's not going to happen? Or?
Well, at this point, we haven't done anything based on a number of different factors that would be taken into consideration for September.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
I want to congratulate our two student representatives for their performance at the at the prom. That you both looked beautiful and conducted yourself very maturely.
Thank you.
Okay. Claire, could we have the curriculum committee report, please?
Sure. And I'm reading off my phone because Michelle Callis sent me an email because she was out today. So some of the things to report are tonight, teachers are being recommended to complete the entire curriculum for math and English language arts and middle school social studies. The goal is to have it complete by the mid to end of July. K-6 math is complete and is being reviewed before board adoption. And gifted and talented program at the K-5 levels. We are now accepting parental and teacher nominations for the 14-15 K-5 G&T program. The method will involve multiple measures for the gifted and talented, so it's not just one item. And there will be more information forthcoming about the program. And that's it, right? I don't move anything.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any comments, questions about curriculum items?
Yeah, I just had a basic question about, is there a general idea about how that program is going to be delivered next year, whether it's going to be delivered as a pull-out or a push-in, or
I think I'm not sure.
Notice was just sent out as far as identifying the number of students. Depending on the number of students, will determine exactly the parameters in which how we're going to provide that service.
Okay. I mean, I was just thinking that may impact some parents' decision whether or not to put their student's name in or their child's name in for a program. That might be a deciding factor for a family.
Again, I mean, as of this year, we have a very few identified students, and so until we know the total scope of the program and how many students we're going to serve, can't really tell exactly what the time frame would be.
Are there any other comments on the curriculum items? Okay, Catherine?
The Finance and Facilities Committee did meet tonight. We discussed the ROD grant update. That's for the windows at Bartle School. There's a kickoff meeting scheduled for June 12th, so the project is proceeding. The RFP for custodial maintenance and landscaping services was advertised, and proposals will be opened on June 18th. We will probably have a one-month extension with Temco because we won't be able to approve this contract until the July board meeting. And the motion for the extension will be on the next meeting's agenda. The balcony project in the high school, the seating company has been in, and Linda says she's getting quotes for just small projects, such as the media center carpeting in the high school, middle school media center, and the blacktop at Bartle and Irving, and gym floor resurfacing in the schools. Also, item number 4, we're grateful for the Resnick family donation of $5,000. They have funded the Summer Lindsay Meyer Teen Institute trip several times now, and we're grateful for their continuing generosity. Let's see. And item number 5 also is the letter of intent. It just indicates the district's interested in participating in a broadband initiative. It is just, I mean, there's nothing definitive about it, I guess. We have a contract for 3 years, so nothing will be happening, but it's just the first step in a process. And that is all.
Questions?
I have a question. Catherine, I don't know, maybe Linda would be able to answer it. I was going to ask you about item 5. I'm not, so the letter of intent is expressing our intent to participate in something, and it's the something that we're intending to participate in that I'm not sure I understand.
This is a regional broadband initiative. The state DOE is trying to roll out something statewide in various regions to enable school districts to have broadband at lower price because of the economies of scale. So they are having mostly the Educational Services Commissions sponsor or spearhead these regional initiatives. And the first step is to see how many districts will participate. And the state is encouraging all districts to participate. And the next step will be to assess the needs of each district so that they can determine the full scope of each region's project. Then they'll go out to bid, and then the districts that want to participate will get into the program once their current contracts expire. So anywhere between 1 to 5 years, they hope that most, if not all, school districts will be part of this huge broadband conglomerate.
So this is sort of the equivalent of FiOS knocking on my door at home way back when saying, if we could bring it to you, would you buy it? And I'd say, yeah, sure.
It's like,
And that's really all we're saying is,
Yes, we're not
yeah, sure.
committing.
There's no commitment, there's no
Correct.
financial knowledge here. It's simply that, wow, that sounds like a great idea and we'd love to participate if it makes sense.
Correct.
is it like ACES?
Yes. In fact, they are considering
It seems-
incorporating it into
right,
the
it
ACES
seems like
program.
exactly that.
And as one of the, as ACES being the umbrella over that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense. ACES worked for us.
Any other comments on the finance items? Ann, could we have the personnel?
The Personnel Committee met tonight. We discussed a number of items, including a maternity leave and a resignation of a paraprofessional. I wanted to call your attention to 3 items. The first is that we're appointing Craig Gervin as a summer athletic coordinator. The second is that we are accepting David Jacob as the volunteer school football team doctor, and want to thank him for his generosity. And the third is that we are we are approving tonight the appointment of Anthony Benjamin, who will be the principal for Bartle School.
Great. Questions, comments, thoughts? Adam, policies.
The policy committee did not meet tonight. We'll try to meet as the school year winds down, as things have slowed down and committees have slowed down. With that, I would like to move item.
No, you don't. No,
Sorry, I don't move. You're right. Old habits. Old habits. 8 years. These have been put forth by the finance committee and are up for first reading tonight.
I had a question about specifically about the public records policy.
Yep.
We have it in, the way we have it in our drive is we have the old policy and a new policy. It's hard to, and then I only saw 2 things that are bolded. I don't know if those are the only 2 changes. I didn't have have time to do a line-by-line analysis.
Those are the only 2 changes. The two changes, and the one of note, is that the board is now acknowledging the right for people to email Oprah requests in.
Yeah, I noticed that. And so those are the only changes. It was just hard to tell with the 2. So there's no strikeouts. There's no.
I understand. Yeah.
Okay.
I actually think there is something else. And
There was 2.
There were 2.
Right. I just said the one.
No, something got changed to like May instead of.
Yeah. The one that note was that email request would be accepted.
At the bottom of page 2 on the old policy, there's this thing that's first page to the 10th page, 11th to the
cost.
20th. Yeah. And I think that's not in the new one. But it's not struck through.
Are you talking about the public records one?
Yeah.
The new the policy that is being put forth for first reading is such a drastic rewrite that there was no point in doing strike-throughs and bolds. It would have been impossible. So the new policy, where it talks about costs, the old policy's verbiage about costs was no longer valid. So it's just totally struck.
Okay. I think, the question, so I looked as best I could between the old policy and the new policy, and it's very difficult. So I don't know if there's a way that,
We're basically scrapping the old one and replacing it with the new one, because the new one complies with the legislation, which came out a couple of years ago about this.
Okay.
The old one was so much out of compliance with the legislation, it really was, you just have to just not, just
Okay.
throw it out.
But the intent, there was no change in intent.
Right, yeah, my question, I guess, is just if we have sort of our overall concerns, the sort of, what am I trying to say, the structural changes, the really significant structural changes, if sort of we could be notified in some way about those. So like the electronic.
We did discuss it in committee at the last committee meeting.
Yeah, okay.
And we didn't really see any good way of doing any kind of a, side-by-side strike-through or anything like
Right,
that.
right.
Yeah.
So it's just too different.
And I think that this is the rare time, I think, like Darcy pointed out, that we would normally want to see that.
Yeah, sure.
Just, this time.
Yep.
I mean, I guess my only concern then would be that we get a little bit more time to review it and think about it, because like I said, I kind of started to do a side-by-side and then lost track and didn't know what I was doing, so.
It is only first reading tonight. Any changes, feel free to come back with, but it's pretty boilerplate, to be honest.
Okay. Any other questions or comments, policy?
I'm sorry, I did have one about the 8508, and I think it's 8507 as well. It's talking about that students get automatically these, the 5 different food groups for their lunches, and we're saying that now they only have to pick 3 of those, and it's the student's choice. None of that can be dictated by the food personnel in the lunchroom. But I did notice that it says if the students do not choose enough food items to comprise a reimbursable meal, a la carte prices will be charged.
Yep.
How does that work with a 40% free reduced lunch population?
It's actually written for
Yeah, this is in order to comply with the National School Lunch Program. In order to be counted as a meal, it has to have at least 3 of the 5 components.
Right.
And so the workers will encourage the student to choose a 3rd component if they haven't already.
Right.
Because they're at risk of it not being called a meal under the requirements of the National School Lunch Program. And that's why the wording is, if they cannot call it a meal, then they have to charge the components separately as a la
So
carte.
they have to take the food and not eat it if they choose, or it's not a meal.
But I guess I'm thinking of the reverse. What does that mean we have to charge them? Like we're physically charging a student?
We haven't had to do that because the child will accept the encouragement of taking a 3rd component.
I guess I'm just cautious of putting wording into a policy that we can't and probably shouldn't enforce, that we would
But
charge.
if we don't,
federal.
if we don't comply with this, we lose out on federal funding.
But is that specific line?
Yeah.
That's my question.
they don't
That's
take
a federal.
That's the federal regulation.
if
But
they
I
don't take-
understand that the
Yeah.
federal regulation is that they have to have the 3. But my question is the federal regulation, if they don't take the 3, they have to be charged?
We can't call it a lunch.
And
We
then
can't
we
call
have
it.
to charge.
Yeah. The only alternative is to charge for the milk and charge for the sandwich and charge, whatever it is that they're having. You can only call it a meal if it has at minimum 3 out of the 5 required components.
Right. Yeah, I guess, again, the concern is how do you charge I'm glad we haven't encountered that. I would just hate to encounter that, and then what do we do?
Strongly encourage
Put the
them.
string beans on the plate
You
and
put
we
the,
give
right,
them-
you put the milk on, you put the milk on the plate.
You stick a milk on the
Right.
tray.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but that's why I'm wondering why that part is in there, saying that we're going to charge.
Because it comes from the federal.
That's the requirement, federal
That's
requirement.
for us to receive the money.
Okay.
Are there any other comments about the policies?
You said you had one on the other?
No, though, it's the same.
The same one, okay.
Yeah. The same language is in both policies.
The Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and has reserved this time for your comments. I'd like to make a motion to limit each public comment to 3 minutes, as per bylaw 0167.
Second.
Linda?
Ms. Aversa?
Yes.
Ms. Berkowitz?
Yes.
Ms. Bull?
Yes.
Ms. Simarusti?
No?
Mr. Dietz?
Yes.
Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Scherber?
Yes.
Mr. Sherman?
No.
So if you'd like to make public comment, feel free to come to the podium, state your name and address, and sign in the ledger.
I have a question. The 3 minutes, it's a hard 3 minutes?
I will mention when 3 minutes is up, and I will allow the person to complete their comments in a short amount of time.
To complete them. I'm just checking. So people, when you give the signal that 3 minutes is up, people are expected to complete their comment.
Correct.
Thank you.
Does the 3-minute count if we're asking for a response back? Anyway, my question was, Anthony...
Melissa, just state your name and
Oh,
address.
sorry. Melissa Newman, 215 Montgomery Street. I see in the agenda that Anthony Benjamin is going to be the Bartle principal, and I did a quick search and I saw his resume on LinkedIn, and I'm sure I'm missing parts of the resume, but it looks like he finished his bachelor's degree in 2000 and then had his first supervisory role in 2002, but it doesn't, so it looks like there's only 2 years of actual teaching, but I'm assuming that there's probably more, and I was wondering if somebody could elaborate on that.
We don't speak. The resumes are operable as people have known, but we do not speak about personnel from the board table.
What? I can't hear you.
There's no action. There's no action been taken on that personnel, and so we can't speak to it at this point in time.
We don't discuss personnel. As people have found out, resumes are operable. We do not speak about personnel from the board table.
But my understanding is that from a certification process, the state requires a certain number of teaching years before a principal's license can be granted.
Okay, so you guys know for a fact that that minimum he has met. Can you answer that question or not?
The state is the licensing body, so that's the information that I can give you about that.
Okay. And my second question was, with that policy, there's a paragraph that says something about test questions, scoring keys, and other examinations.
Melissa, tell us which policy you're looking at.
Operations, page 2 of 5, second paragraph. Test questions, scoring keys, and other examination data, et cetera, information concerning individual pupils is not public record. I'm guessing that's referring to, like, if the data can actually point to a particular student, it's not public record, which makes sense. That
8310, public
Oh, the
records.
public records one. Okay. No, that's fine. I just didn't know which one you were referring to.
is the test questions referring to, like, test questions that teachers are writing internally, or is it talking about, like, park-type test questions that are not public record? Or is it only, like, the answers that some kids are giving on a particular test? Because I know in the past, like, especially with New Jersey Ask and other standardized tests, previous years of tests were considered public record, and people could get access to them as study guides for the future. So that's all I'm asking about.
I mean, I think we would have to look at the statute for this.
This is probably wording right out of the
Right.
statute.
The statute would provide the. I will look up the statute.
You're probably looking at the statute right now.
I probably am.
My sense of it would be, you can't, if there are secure exams, you couldn't,
No, this says the administration of an examination for employment.
or
Academic, right. So you're talking about the tests that they would have taken. If you had, let's say, an employment procedure where you had them test, let's say a typing test, that would not be operable.
So this isn't referring at all to, like, park or other tests that we give to the students. These are tests that we give to the teachers and superintendent and people like that.
The answer is.
It says individual pupil records. I mean, I would think this was referencing like benchmarking and things like that those tests are not operable.
That's what would be my gut, but I'm looking at the statute right now, and it's the Open Public Records Act, Public Law 201, Chapter 404. I'm going to have to read to figure out exactly where it is, but
we'll look into it.
yeah, the answer is we don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Is there any other public comment? Yeah, but the rest of this paragraph is about pupils.
Hi, Anna Perez, 344 Becker Street. I was looking at the district fundamental principles, as stated in your webpage. I saw this. It's number 4. It says, in order for all students to achieve, we will need to work supportively and collaboratively with staff, family members, and community, and with anyone needed to ensure student success. So at the close of what has been a very difficult year, I think, for everybody, for you, for us, 1 year marked by division and distrust, I would like to ask Superintendent Capone and board members to consider if they feel they have indeed worked supportively and collaboratively with the 3 groups stated, staff, family members, and community. Now, I can tell you from my end, and I don't think I'm alone, that many in the community feel frustrated and sad. I'm sure a number of board members also feel frustrated and sad. How we got here would require some soul searching. We can't do this at this time, but I'm sure we'll take it some time to reflect about that over the summer. The central issue, one of the central issues, I think, is communication and the management of communication, which I know is a concern of the board and is also among the district goals identified for 2013 and 2014. So among those goals, we find to promote our school and programs to the broader community. To achieve this goal, we will promote communications with the community through working groups, open houses, the district website, emails and social networking, monthly updates, newsletters, bulletin boards, etc. Are we doing this? Absolutely, we should do. Check, 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 check. Now, I think the district is doing an excellent job in disseminating information, but it has yet to develop effective tools to engage in two-way communication with its constituents. The district may, in particular, want to consider how to create a feedback loop to improve its response to community concerns, as voiced, for example, in public comments at the Board of Education meeting. A good example is what has happened in those last 2 weeks. We received today a letter from Mr. Capone expressing his satisfaction at the meetings conducted with members of the communities in which he discussed educational opportunities offered to students, and he went on to describe the insights, the administration, and the clarity the community has derived from those meetings. He will, of course, continue the practice of these meetings, and I have nothing against it, as long as, you know, not the preferred mode of communication, and I am afraid that's what it's going to be. In that case, I should want to object. Indeed, by giving preference to some modes of communication, top-down memos, you know, endless, paperless communications, top-down, or restricted access community meetings over public discussion, the district is de facto excluding and perhaps even discriminating against the many citizens who do not feel one-to-one or small group meetings are the most appropriate setting to discuss issues that may have a significant impact on district practices and policies.
Anna, please just be aware of the time.
So
you.
I suggest, to avoid fostering a culture of secrecy and selective communication, I suggest the district should seek input in a variety of ways in the spirit of shared governance. I would suggest, in particular, asking, I think there's a communication task force, right? So they could be charged to design a communication plan that would include specific protocols to address written and oral questions, comments, and requests by community members and staff. That's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Someone took it.
The sign-in sheet.
There's 3 of them.
Kimberly Bevilacqua Crane, speaking as president of the HPEA. I wanted to report that negotiations are moving along. We are fortunate to have scheduled a date with the state mediator very quickly. The next mediation date is June 19th, and we would like to remind the board and the public that it is common for our membership to gather a showing of support for the negotiation team. What is unusual is that we notified both the board president and the superintendent that we would be gathering, not as a picket line, but as a support group for both teams. This was to show good faith in wishing for a speedy resolution. We would like to remind the public that even a less polite gathering of union members, which has happened in the past over the history of unions, would never attempt to block an entrance to any of the school buildings or intimidate anyone attempting to enter. If you see a group with signs, a group of educators with signs and matching t-shirts, it's completely appropriate and welcome for you to come and ask us questions about why we have gathered. We're hoping to come to resolution on the contract at the next mediation. And if there are any questions, again, about why we're there or what's going on, we're happy to answer them. These are the teachers that teach your kids every day. We're not going to change our personalities just because we've gathered en masse. So please do not be intimidated if you see a group of us, and in fact, you can come and show your support with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kim. Is there any other public comment? Okay, Claire.
I just want to say about negotiations as well. Kim and our team had met, and I agree it was a very productive meeting. I think it will continue to be productive moving forward. I think we made strides forward. I think we're working together to find a resolution that would be best for the students, as the teachers view it, and as the community and the board.
Great. Thank you, Adam. Claire, could we have the curriculum items, please?
Yes. Before I move them, I want to read in a few changes. On item number 1, approve.
I'm sorry, can you hold on till I get it? Okay, sorry.
On item number 1.
Hold on. Greg's not there.
Go to item number 1. Okay, on item number 1, approval of field trips. There is a change. I'm going to read it off here. That the field trip is listed on 6/5 is listed as Thursday, and it is actually Wednesday, June 4th. And the other item is
It's on the list.
number 5. Item number 5.
Well, but what you're referencing isn't actually on the agenda. It's on the list of field trips, so we have to...
Right.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. Under item number 5, the CPR course is Wednesday, not Thursday. It is still June 11th.
Somebody was looking at last year's calendar.
I don't know. Okay. And with that, I will move items 1 through 5 plus number 6 on the addendum.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Linda?
Ms. Versa?
Yes.
Ms. Berkowitz?
Yes.
Ms. Bull?
Yes.
Ms. Simarusti?
Yes.
Mr. Dietz?
Yes.
Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Scherber?
Yes.
Mr. Sherman?
Yes.
Catherine?
I'd like to move items 1 through 17 on the agenda.
Is there any other discussion?
Can I just ask quick, I'm just curious about the contract to participate in coordinated transportation with all the different districts. Is that individual students or like a...
No, these are bus route runs to a particular school where we don't have enough kids to make it economical to run a bus, and so we'll try to join in with another district and do a joint run. So kids from our district and kids from Piscataway will go to a particular school, and we share the cost.
For private
These are
bus.
going to
Gotcha.
private schools for the handicapped.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Okay, Linda?
Ms. Aversa?
Yes.
Ms. Berkowitz?
Yes.
Ms. Bull?
Yes.
Ms. Simarusti?
Yes.
Mr. Dietz?
Yes.
Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Scherber?
Yes.
Mr. Sherman?
Yes.
Ann?
I'd like to move items 1 through 7 on the agenda, please.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion of the personnel items? Linda?
Ms. Aversa?
Yes.
Ms. Berkowitz?
Yes.
Ms. Bull?
Yes.
Ms. Simarusti?
Yes.
Mr. Dietz?
Yes.
Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Scherber?
Yes.
Mr. Sherman?
Yes.
Adam?
I'd like to move items 1 on the policy agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? I have one thing on the 8310, the public records. There's a paragraph that's called the common right law right of access, which was the way that it was written on the old policy. But that doesn't seem, the common right law right of access doesn't seem like something that makes a lot of sense. I think it should be right. It should probably be the common law right of access.
Right.
Pay,
Yeah, I think the word right is in there twice.
right.
All right. Thank you.
Correct.
Is there any other discussion on those policies? Okay, Linda?
Ms. Aversa?
Yes.
Ms. Berkowitz?
Yes.
Ms. Bull?
Yes.
Ms. Simarusti?
Yes.
Mr. Dietz?
Yes.
Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Scherber?
Yes.
Mr. Sherman?
Yes.
For the President's report, I just want to, there's a couple of things that I want to bring up. The first is that we have 2 tech committee meetings coming up to discuss the technology plan and technology in the district moving forward. They are at 6:30 in the middle school cafeteria on June 11th and on June 26th. And if we could get those put up on the website also, that would be helpful. So again, it's 6:30 at the middle school cafeteria, June 11th and June 26th. And the only other thing I want to talk about is I just want to say that I'm very excited to have the new Bartle principal start. So far I've heard very, very positive things about the new Irving principal, and I'm looking forward to, to the change, to the new principal coming in, and I'm excited for him and for the students.
If we could get the new administrators to come to a board meeting, that would be great.
Is there any old business?
I just want to mention the events that come up at the end of the school year that the board tends to attend in some representative form. So we've got the Student of the Year banquet and senior awards. Of course, graduation on the 23rd. We're all expected to be there. So I don't know how the kids, maybe the last year Susan Adato sent around an email and we responded to that. So maybe just we could do that and keep your eyes open for it. I mean, usually we're distributed so that there are kids in each school, so parents are in each school. But it's nice to have representation at all the graduations on the 23rd. We're moving up ceremonies.
We do need a number of speakers for at least all the graduations. There is a speaker, and normally National Honor Society and senior awards.
Say that again, Adam?
We need to, Dan will manage, there's a speaking role normally for a board member at graduation, at all graduations and moving up ceremonies, the senior awards and National Honor Society. Dan will.
We'll get the list from Susan.
I don't think the board member has spoken at the last few senior awards.
Oh, okay, even better.
I know that Catherine and I have attended them, but we haven't spoken.
Perfect.
We'll get the list and we'll send it out, and people, if there are particular ones like the Bartle moving up ceremony, we can certainly have people who are interested participate in those. Is there any other old business?
I have something.
That's new business. That's new.
It's old business, right?
Either way?
Yes, it's an amendment to a policy, is what I wanted to bring up.
All right.
So
Distribute,
that's-
do you want to distribute those also, or no?
Yes. I did this, yes, you take one and pass them down. So I've passed out two of our existing policies that I'm going to suggest some amendments to. Does everybody have two? The two you should have is 0167, public participation in board meetings, and 0164, conduct of board meetings. Does everybody have both?
Do you have any extras?
Yes.
We need two.
Here, pass this one to Linda.
I have two of the same, sorry.
Okay, so if you look at 0164, you'll see at the top, there's a paragraph that's shaded in, and that's language I got from the School Board Association. And it talks about the length of meetings. Okay, so you can read that. I don't know if I can read it out loud. Can I read it out? Can I read it out loud?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
These are, just to,
Here's what I would recommend.
what you handed out to us, these are these aren't the current policies, these are changes that you're asking us to consider. Is
There
that
are the
right?
current policies. The changes I'm asking us to consider are what is in the gray.
Right.
That's the only thing that I've added.
So here's what I would recommend for the procedure for this. I would think you should explain what you're trying to do, but what should happen at the end of that is that these policies should be referred to the policy committee, which you're on, to then read out and debate as the committee, and then come to the full board. So I think you can feel free to explain what you're talking
Okay.
about, but for first reading, it should at least, because it's a zero policy, it should go to the policies committee itself should discuss it first. That's the way we've been trying to handle the policies.
Okay, are we going to have a policy committee
Well,
meeting?
we can set, now that we have something in concrete, I'll make sure we have one prior to next meeting.
Okay. So the intent of what I've added to the policies is to find a way to make sure that everybody has a chance to speak and that we really do limit our comments to a certain amount of time, and to make sure that we all can go home at a reasonable hour. Because I know for one, I have to go to work in the morning, and I think a lot of other people have to go to work in the morning, and I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to speak. Okay? And so that's the intent of what my additions are to the policy.
So what we will do is me, you, and Ann will meet at the next board meeting to discuss this and create a language for first reading, if appropriate.
The next board meeting is goal setting. So
Right,
that-
I figured I'm thinking the three of us can pull a few minutes after.
Before 5?
Huh? No, not before, not before. During or after that meeting to discuss it.
But what if we can't put it in for first reading next time?
There's no movement at the next meeting at all. Next meeting will be the work session board meeting.
No, I think what we're,
We are planning on moving?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we don't normally move
There's
it.
always a meeting after there's a business meeting after the.
Okay, I don't know that.
so that, I mean, oh, go on.
So explain to me again what should happen?
Explain it to her.
Okay, so this should be given to a committee, just like every other policy that we have, goes through a committee first. So this policy falls under the policy committee.
Yeah.
And we will find a time, we could either do it by phone or at the next meeting, to discuss your changes, discuss it as a committee, and if the committee agrees, we would bring it forth for first reading.
First reading at the next board meeting.
No, at the following board meeting.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Not the next board meeting, at the board meeting after that, the July.
Well, doesn't it depend when the policy committee meets?
Right.
If the policy committee meets tomorrow, then it would go, on the 6/19
Right.
or 16th agenda.
So we can,
We could conceivably find some time, like a day
Yeah.
that isn't and just have a separate meeting.
That's
separate
fine.
Policy meeting.
that's fine. The three of us will discuss after this meeting.
Okay.
Okay, is there any other old business?
I would just bring up another policy, and maybe, we need to handle this the same one I brought up last time, where we were talking about email communications to the board and how those are not addressed, how they've been being handled, how we think they should be handled in the future. I think to Claire's point, I think that could ameliorate a lot of the public comment that we see. If emails are responded to, then we'll see less public comment. So I think that could go towards the same goal. So, I mean, is that how you'd like to see us do this? Or?
So I spoke with Gwen, and she talked about the bylaw, and her sense of the responses to emails was that as the board president, the response should be somewhat form, but directing that person to the correct person who would answer that question. So someone should be responsive. Obviously, I'm not the person who has all the information for every question, but I think that we can look into that. And she gave me some sample language that we could use, so that the responses do come from me as opposed to just coming from your office.
So it would basically be thank you for your concern.
This is a curriculum
the
item.
appropriate person for would be X. X will follow up with you or follow up with X, or
Right.
But so that there's an official channel for.
And we would figure out whether we would want to CC that person, or what the best operation would be for that.
Okay, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah. Okay, is there any other old business? So I wanted to just talk about the goal-setting meeting.
I'm sorry, could I add one more thing?
Well, you have
Yeah,
Okay.
no, it's really quick. It's
Go for it.
about the resolution that we adopted. I went to Trenton and I presented our resolution to the Assembly Education Committee. The bill came out of the Assembly Education Committee. I wanted to update everyone and let you know that it's going to be voted on by the full Assembly, I believe, on the 16th of June, and that it looks very hopeful to also be brought forward in the Senate. So, if there's anything between now and then that I think that we as a community can do, any outreach that we can do, whether to our Senator Peter Barnes or anywhere else, I'll keep everybody updated.
Thank you.
Yeah, is there a way that, does Save Our Schools have a link for people? Can we direct them to a link, or is there?
At this point, our Assembly people are, pretty
Right.
solid, so, so there's not a lot we really need to do there, but if there is, I'll certainly let everybody know.
Okay, that'd be great. Yeah, and if there is something that is form that people could do, the district could certainly send out information.
I'm sorry, a form? Is that what you said?
If there's something that's, by pressing send, you're going to send this note to all of the assembly members.
Gotcha.
That type of thing.
Okay.
The district could certainly disseminate that.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about the goal-setting meeting, because I want to make sure that we have a structure that we all understand. So the next meeting begins at 5 p.m., and it's the goal-setting part of the meeting is not recorded. We have a conversation. It's a public meeting. But before we sort of sit down and get to the goal setting, I wanted to kind of have a sense of how this is going to proceed. And, this is board goals, obviously informed by the administration. And so I think that we should be considering what things the administration is interested in pursuing, and then adopting goals that really reflect what the board's interest is with that background. So could you talk a little bit about kinds of the sort of overarching goals or things that maybe board members should be thinking about for the next 2 weeks, so that when we sit, get to this part of the meeting in 2 weeks, we have a good sense of maybe some things that we might want to consider?
Well, I think that we presented the strategic plan at the last meeting, and that's really the kind of the capsule in which we were hoping, or at least presenting information that would be associated with the goals. The idea would be, and I guess it depends on how it is that you want to do this, as far as if we've presented the strategic plan and if you're looking at goals, that these things would be aligned. And so how it is that you change that, and identifying what the specific actionable items are that we would be completing would really depend on that conversation. So again, this was the information that we collected throughout the course of the year, that we put together to try and identify what were the goals that we had set based on that input. And I would hope that that would be the framework with which we would be discussing the board goals.
Okay. Is there a way that you could send that out electronically to us so that we have?
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to add that, going through this a few times, this is a work meeting. This is not the structure that it's normally used for the goal-setting meeting. We normally break out into groups and go on the side and have conversations about the goals. We have routinely set this up like a box and had a conversation. This is a board retreat. This is a time for us to get together and discuss the future from our perspectives. I encourage each board member to bring goals from, I've brought wellness to technology to academic achievement. What do you want to see in this district in the coming years? Try to come with a list. I was trying to pull up my prior list. I just can't get it right this second. But it runs the gamut. We can write. We don't have to. We also don't have to write 4 goals. We can write more. We could write less. It's really the vision that we want to see for the district as the board and the community.
Right, and the way that we're going to proceed in this is we'll start with the goal setting portion of it, and we can spend. We're meeting at 5. We can spend an ample amount of time doing that. The board goals don't have to be completed by the end of that meeting at all. And then we do have a regular public session, a regular board meeting, open board meeting, starting at 7:30. That will be recorded with actionable items, et cetera. And so then we can go back to discussing some of the board goals, in old business. We can also bring them forward in July. We can bring it forward in August if need be.
I have a question. If members of the public want to have input into the board goals, what should they do?
Email the board. Sorry.
Well, I think also, there is public comment, right?
Linda, you got to help me here. I don't remember ever having a public portion of the goal-setting meeting.
At the beginning of the meeting, the public has the opportunity to comment. We have had members of the public come and speak to the board before they began developing their goals.
Okay.
Or people can email, you're saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sorry, I'm just a little confused. I haven't been through this before, but what I think I heard you said is that we start at 5 o'clock, and it's not recorded, but it is public. So meaning that we would be here, the public would be here, and it's not an interactive, there's no comment during that time, but it's just a transparency thing. But Adam, are you saying in the past you recall that wasn't a transparent process?
No.
That it was a more, I'm just trying to get it. No, I'm just trying to.
Transparent. I think it was.
That's not what nobody has come.
And then we stayed to do the board goals, but everybody had left because.
Besides Ms. Ann Sherber, I do not remember anybody coming to a goal-setting meeting. It's completely above board, and Linda follows the agenda that is set forth by the state.
I wasn't trying to say it was intentionally not transparent. I'm just saying it.
No, it is done above board, and if we need to have a public comment, and we must have always had a public comment, there just has not been a public there.
So there may be one before we start goal setting? Am I getting that right? So we would have public comment at the onset, then we would have our goal setting portion, and then we'd go straight into regular session, or are we going to have a closed session?
So potentially, I think this is part of the discussion. Would this be 2 separate meetings, or would it be 1 meeting? Because for each meeting that the board has, there must be 2 public comments according to the bylaws. So
In the past, this has been 1 meeting, possibly interrupted by an executive session, and then reconvening into the regular session. But it has been 1 meeting.
okay.
Do we have a quorum to start at 5 o'clock is the real question.
So
I know for a fact I cannot be here at 5 o'clock.
I will be here at 5 o'clock.
I can be here at 5 o'clock.
I can be here at 5.
3, 4, 5.
I can probably pretty close get here at 5 o'clock.
Perfect.
Okay.
I can't be here at 5.
See.
Okay.
Probably not, but we'll see. I
So
don't want to say no.
you do have 5.
All right. Is there any other old business? Is there any new business?
I have one quick thing. I was with somebody this weekend who talked to me about the 30 million word gap. I don't know, does anybody know what that is on the board? 31? No, okay.
30 million what?
30 million word gap. It's an interesting, it is a research project done about how many words a affluent family and a family on welfare are exposed to in their growing up years. I began to read over this study. I want to recommend it to the board to look at. It was brought to my attention by somebody who was receiving their master's in education at Harvard, and it's something that they were focusing on in the coming years. It was a study of 42 families from different social economic backgrounds, and to just really assess what happens in the home. And it's kind of something that we've talked about at the board table, and I think it would add to our discussion in coming meetings. It's the 30 million word gap is the name of the study. Interesting reading. Have you heard about it?
Not that specific project, but that's talking about the gap between that within the formative years is what leads to the achievement gap.
Yep,
when you're talking about poverty.
That's pretty much exactly what it talks about.
I have an item of new business. So there's been a discussion since we had that one hot day last week about the temperature within the buildings and whether towards the end of June how we want to handle if we have a hot late June. When we're looking back at the last 4 years, there has been a practice of closing half days for a few of those years for the last week. But I guess I'm just wondering as far as...
I don't remember. I mean, I remember a day when we closed, we did a half day, but that's a rare, and that's when not Linda, Susan had showed that there were, I guess, 2 years in the last 4. So it's a 50-50 split where the last week was half days. So I'm not suggesting that. I'm just wondering as far as, I'm concerned that, again, if it was, 80-something the other day and we have hot, humid weather, what's our breaking point as far as...
Can we turn the sprinklers on and let them run?
Can I just clarify for a second then? Are you saying that we let them out because of the heat, or we had already scheduled half days for the last week of the school?
I remember them already being scheduled.
That's what...
Right. According to Susan, she said 2 of the last 4 years they were scheduled.
Scheduled,
actually sort of decided that we haven't actually ever decided that it was too hot to go to school. There have been scheduled half days.
Right.
Isn't there a state guideline about temperature in the classroom?
Yeah.
Well, but I guess we have 2 scenarios here. We can do early closings if that comes up, or I'm just trying to gauge the board as far as you have a 50-50 practice as far as having the last week being half days. And I'm just looking for input as far as how we want to proceed this year.
I mean, I'd almost be more inclined to, if Dan's mentioned is there state guidelines on temperatures? I mean, this is certainly a complaint that I've heard particularly from Bartle parents, that towards the end of the year, the temperatures in the classrooms can get mighty uncomfortable with kids with prickly heat and, all kinds of stuff going on. So, I mean, I'd certainly be, before we decide on a week of early dismissals, I'd be more, I think, inclined to look at, but then that gets very tricky. Like, I mean, how do you, on a day, send kids home in the middle of the day? I mean, if parents don't have time to plan for that, it's not tenable. Yeah, no, exactly, it's not tenable. So, I don't know what we do there.
Listen,
if
we
we
don't
don't have
close
half
in January
days
because there may be
planned-
snow. I think we just keep school open and have to...
Yeah. I'm comfortable with having a discussion about whether or not we would make it standard procedure to have half days at the end of the school year for some period of time. I'm not comfortable with having a discussion about whether we would make this year have half days. If we're already scheduled to have full days, we should have full days. If we're already scheduled to have half days, we should have half days. There shouldn't be any in between.
What's on the calendar?
People have already set their schedules. Their parents work, kids have to go to school. There's lots of people who already are managing schedules. I don't think we should change people's expectations about the end of the school year.
2 weeks before?
They're currently scheduled as full days, but again, we're just looking at what's been done over the last number of years, and it's gone both ways. And so it was brought to my attention that this had been a practice. This would be the meeting where, if we wanted to do that, you would have to make a decision on it. Again, I'm completely comfortable with not doing it. I just want to make sure that, we're clear on that, and that means that, again, if, depending on what the temperature is and what the circumstances are, then we have to make the call at that time.
I agree with Greg.
Right, yeah, I agree with Greg.
Yeah, I'm
I
comfortable
agree with
having a
Greg, too.
discussion about it for the future, but if it's already scheduled for full days, I think we should.
I think this would be a really good opportunity, though, for us as a board to get feedback from the staff. Personally, I don't know which buildings are air-conditioned, aren't air-conditioned. I certainly know Bartle's not, because I've heard these complaints about Bartle. To get some feedback, if the administration could pull that information together. What are temperatures like in the classrooms? What are those last couple of weeks like? So we could.
I think our facilities person would have that information, and also I would also think that the staff would. It gets hot in that building. I was a student in that building. I know it's hot in that building, and I think everybody would choose to not be there. But
no, but I don't mean get the information for choosing to be there or not to be there. But I mean just to have the information, and if we need to look at doing something about it going forward.
We could ask our facilities manager to take certain temperatures during the day. I think that's how we should do it. I don't understand what the staff component would be. Why
if the facilities manager is the person to do that, that's fine.
Yes.
Okay, is there any other new business? The Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and has reserved this time for your comments. Please again state your name and your address and sign in on the ledger when you come up, and also just be reminded of the 3-minute time limit. Thank you.
Kim Crane speaking as HBEA president. We would welcome a change in the regular schedule, and we appreciate that this discussion is being brought up. Mr. Capone asked me early on, maybe a few weeks ago, so what does the end of the year usually look like in this district? And I said, well, I've been here 15 years, and each year it's different. And that's not something that is necessarily great for us either, because it's very difficult to plan our activities at the end of the year if it's constantly changing. The heat is a constant issue. As Adam was saying, being a student here, we've handed out thermometers to people in the past because the classrooms sometimes get to 95 or over, and we make every attempt to move students to cafeteria, to wherever we can to avoid a half-day situation, but we would request that you take that into serious consideration if the heat gets to a point where we're calling, or the principals are calling you saying, look, we just have nowhere else to move these kids, that you consider calling a half day for the kids' sake and for the sake of the staff. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kim. Is there any other public comment?
Sharice Richardson, 227 Benner Street. I just had a quick question for the board. Back in November, or maybe December, whenever it was that I stood up here and I had asked and spoken with the board previously, I had asked the board to please consider providing cultural competency training for the staff in the district of Highland Park. While I am aware, and every other person of color is aware, that all students of color need to operate in a white world, we do recognize that there are differences in student behavior from different cultural groups, that students are sometimes impacted by things that happen in the classrooms, by conversations that are being had, or the way that things are handled, which could be nipped in the bud simply by providing cultural competency training that encourages people to look at the situations and to examine the dynamics that are occurring, and to encourage people to, look through other people's eyes in terms of how they see a situation as it plays out. So I'm just wondering whether that's a conversation that has happened, whether any discussion has been had about whether that's a possibility. Perhaps Mr. Soto or Mr. Capone, if that's something that's in your plans for this coming year for the training for the staff.
Our focus for next year is focusing on meeting the needs of individuals. And so there's a cultural component within that, but as far as specific training on culture, that's not something we've put together. I think, as we talked about at the last meeting, my biggest concern is that we have had systems in place that have segregated students, and that it's the system, it's not necessarily the practice from the individual teacher that has caused these kinds of issues within the district. And so, again, when we're talking about differentiated instruction, when we're talking about how teachers meet the needs of every kid, it becomes very personalized down to that child. And so while there is a cultural component of that, as far as saying that we have a cultural or a race issue here based on the practice of teachers, I don't personally believe that. I truly believe that this is a system issue that has led to lower expectations for students that are being tracked into lower courses, and that the way that we fix that is by fixing the system and making sure that we're meeting individual needs.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, but I don't have a problem with you doing detracking. I think detracking is a positive thing. And I think there are ways that you have worked on removing institutional, structures that are institutional barriers. But I think that we're still continuing to ignore the reality of America if we think that we don't have to address issues of race or culture. It's not just black and white. It's not just black, white, and Spanish. It's not just black, white, Spanish, and Asian. We're talking about really, really broadly. And it's completely, and I don't think that there are people who are intentionally trying to be racist. I don't. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that we all need to kind of look at ourselves and the way that we interact with one another and the assumptions that we make.
Yep.
And I think that if we hold a cultural competency training, that would assist in the process of people being able to look at that.
I would just like to ask, and Kim can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe on the first few days of school, just for the teachers, they receive some sort of social training or some sort of training on how to deal with different scenarios that happen during the school day. At least in the high school, that was my understanding, was kind of the first 2 days.
But it's not to the extent that Sharice is talking about. And I think that, when we're talking about meeting individual needs, again, there's a component of that. As far as specific training to that, I don't know that that's the biggest concern. I truly believe it's an instructional issue of how we meet the needs of those learners, and that's the driver, and that's the area of focus that we're going to start with. It's not minimizing that there may not be components there, but even with the extended time that the board has granted for training at the beginning of next year, there's an awful lot that needs to be done as far as that integration. And so when we're talking about those training days and what the top priorities are, again, meeting the individual needs of student, and that cuts across all different issues, all different things that need to be addressed. That is the starting point that we're looking at in the fall.
Okay, well, I just want to, I'll just wrap up by saying that I do believe that that's an individual need of students,
and
to have people understand them culturally and to not make assumptions about them. So
Absolutely.
and we can disagree on that, and that's okay.
I don't think we're disagreeing.
I understand you have to have priorities about where you're going to put resources and how you're going to address different issues, and there's a lot of things to cover. So thank you.
I would
Thank
like
you,
to say
Sharice.
that I think it's a really good idea that you're bringing up, Sharice, and I would be interested in some sort of needs assessment of the district, of the staff, all levels of the staff in the district on this issue.
And I think as Mr. Soto has spoken about, I think there is a discipline component to this conversation as well, and how we handle discipline within this district. And I think that we were literally just talking about this before the board meeting, is what is appropriate, when is it appropriate, and how do we handle when students, how students and when students disrupt the school day.
Well, I think the suggestion of something in addition perhaps to what we're doing or to enhance what we're doing, and when I say something, I believe the phrase you used was cultural competency. The idea that diversity, inclusion, sensitivity to other cultures, to the gender divide, that's something that needs to be incorporated throughout everything that we do and throughout everything that we teach our kids and throughout the way that we manage our professional development of our teachers. And the fact that there might need to be some components that specifically talk about those issues and that don't just integrate the topics. I'd love to get more from the administration about how to incorporate that into how we behave as a district and as a community. I mean, I think it's a great idea. I mean, when you say cultural, the phrase keeps escaping.
Competencies.
Cultural competencies. On the one hand, it could be as simple, I'm putting quotes around it, as discussions of a class for an hour of a professional development, but it could also be something that gets incorporated fully into everything that you're doing. And I think it's a great idea, and I think it's a part of what you're doing. I think what you're talking about with identifying the individual needs is a great start. I'd like for us to stay aware of that and to keep that flowing into our professional development. I might not be articulating myself very well, but
wouldn't that be part of the strategic plan, and then the mission?
That's something we should be talking about at our next meeting.
The missions and the goals that come out of that.
Yeah, and to your point, Greg, I completely agree that I'd like to see more of it integrated into our professional development, and that's not some kind of slight on our teachers. That's not saying that we think our teachers, as Cherie said, are intentionally engaging in any kind of specific behaviors that we feel we need to ameliorate. I think anyone in a town like Highland Park can use this kind of training because we are such a wonderfully diverse community. And to that, a few meetings ago, we passed a policy, the comprehensive equity plan. And at that time, as I read it, I felt like it was this really great opportunity to come up with some kind of like an equity task force where we could really sit down and look at issues of equity within our district. And I think that would be one very interesting component of that. And as we move forward, we have now a technology committee. I think that's great that that's meeting within the next few weeks. I would encourage us as a board to look at something like that, an equity task force moving forward, where we could look at the discipline issues, where we could look at issues of staff training, where we could get these kind of recommendations from the public to make this, as we're saying, we want it to be the most equitable district. While I think detracking is a fantastic start, I don't think that's the beginning or the end. And especially as we continually present testing data broken down by race, I think we need to be much more sensitive to race and then how that trickles down into our staff and our classrooms and equity issues in our district. So I would like us to continue to look at that idea of an equity task force.
I think an equity task force would be a good idea, and I would serve on it.
I would as well. And I mean, to that, there was a meeting last week. I wasn't particularly planning on reporting on this, but because I didn't go as a board member, I went as a member of the community. Ashton Burrell, who runs a mentoring program in town, ran a meeting in conjunction with some of the folks from Highland Park Cares About Schools, and it was a fantastic meeting where just a group of community members got together and talked about what we can do to best serve not only all students in our community, but particularly underserved students in our community, or students who may unintentionally become disenfranchised within our community despite our best efforts. I think we all, hold in our hearts that our teachers have our students' best interests at all times. But we may need to look at other institutional things that we're doing that, despite our best efforts, are having unintended consequences. So I hope that those conversations continue outside of the board level, but I would also like to see them brought to the board table as well.
Agreed. Any other thoughts?
No, I believe that, cultural diversity training can be explored a little more, so certainly we'll have some more conversations, particularly within the context of social behavior. Let me give you a perfect example. When I was a principal, there was a teacher who felt disrespected because she was reprimanding a Hispanic student, and he wasn't looking at her. And she came to me and said, Mr. Soto, he is very disrespectful. If she only knew that within the Hispanic community, it's disrespectful when the kid actually looks at you. And so the child was looking on the floor, and so I told her within the Hispanic community, the kids are taught that when you're being reprimanded, you look down as a sign of respect to that adult. So within that context, certainly that's something that we should explore. So thank you for your comment.
Thank you, Israel. Any other thoughts about that? Okay.
Melissa Newman, 215 Montgomery. What you guys were talking about is very interesting, and my recommendation is maybe do a mini lesson or something for the students as well to help understand each other. But anyway, that's not what I was going to talk about. I wanted to talk about the emails and your hope that some of the emails could replace public comment. One of the differences between email and public comment is that right now my public comment is being recorded, so anybody can go on and look at it, see it at any point in history, where if I said the same exact words through an email, it goes off into email la-la land. So one possible way to fix that, if you do want emails to help with public comment, reducing them, is to maybe have the board create an official blog where you're not posting a message as individual blog members, but you're posting it as, this is the response of the board. And it could be like, if you notice the same people saying the same comments in public comment, write an official blog response. Or if you're getting the same email questions over and over again, you can write a blog response or something, so then people won't feel like they have to go to the board meeting and have 10 people talking in order to feel like they're getting heard. That's all.
Thank you, Melissa.
Denise Mayfair, I just wanted to comment on some of the, 314 Wayne Street, sorry.
Thank you.
Denise Mayfair. I just wanted to comment on several of the things. One, I think last time we had a big discussion here at the board meeting about the gap, achievement gap, and I think that the cultural competency or any kind of training around cultural sensitivity, cultural awareness would be really, really helpful for us all. We certainly discussed it last week, and while it's very nice for an individual child's culture to be taken into account, I think that as a group, as a community, as a school district, it would behoove us all to carry this out on various levels. So that's just my take on that. Another thing I wanted to address was this issue of limiting public comment and limiting the time of the board meetings. I don't like sitting here till 2 in the morning. I got to get up. I get up at 5:30 in the morning. I sit here because I care about what y'all are talking about, and I want to know what you are saying. So I think that in any kind of policy change or amendment to policy 0164 or 0167, you should not limit the time. Finally, Google, the Google privacy, I brought that up months ago, and then yet months ago after that, Darcy said y'all were working on it, and I'm curious as to what it is, because I really think Google's tracking my kids based upon my own uneducated parental perusal of their devices.
Is that something that we can roll into some of these technology committee meetings? Have someone who's participating in those meetings specifically reporting out on those issues? Because I did, I apologize, Denise, I did start looking into it, and then I have to admit I dropped the ball on that too. But some of the original, the initial stuff that I saw was that it was more of an issue if Gmail accounts are being created for students, but I was under the understanding that we are not doing that as part of using the Chromebooks. But I mean, I think it's definitely something we should be getting more information about and reporting back out on.
This is a Brian thing. You've emailed, provide us with the information you provided us with last time, please, from Brian.
We can wrap it into the tech committee.
Yeah, I don't think it should be brought up. I do not think it should be brought up in the tech committee. I don't think it's something that.
Well, as far as a response and as far as it being a concern from the community, I think it's appropriate for them to discuss it there, and as far as what kind of safeguards or what kind of threat it is.
Right.
I think that is the appropriate place to discuss it.
An appropriate scope of the conversation.
Can I add, much to my dismay, I have children with Gmail accounts, and it's there. I think it's something I have to resign myself to, and maybe we'll have to resign ourselves to it. I don't like it, but I think as terms of what people want to know about their children, it should be out there so that they know it. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Bless you.
Anybody?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Fine? Okay. This is a bit a counterpart to my former intervention, and just to say that the board does listen to the community. I've said that before, and I want to say it again, so thank you for listening. In particular, on the issue of Spanish instruction, I was very pleased to see Spanish instruction identified as an area of need in Superintendent Capone Vision 2020 presentations, the slide 7 and 8. As you know, this is an issue that we have raised in these Board of Education meetings and in other forums, and it's just wonderful that we were able to recruit such a talented Spanish instructor to fill the need for the rest of the year. Now, a Spanish teaching position is currently advertised. We were able to hire a very qualified instructor as a temporary solution this spring, but most likely the underlying structural problems will persist if the Spanish teaching position at Bartle remains a part-time position, which I don't know for sure because I have had problems finding information, and it's my fault because I should have gone to the principal first and asked her about the profile of the position, so I apologize for that.
Excuse me one second. If there's any conversation in the audience, can you take it outside, please? Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, to the best of my understanding, Spanish at Irving has been taught with recording materials for a little while, which does definitely not meet New Jersey state standards for quality instruction. At Bartle, the reduction from 2 periods to 1 weekly period that occurred a few years ago weakened language learning at the elementary level so much that the district middle school students with few fundamentals to build on and little instructional continuity start Spanish almost from scratch. In other words, it's really a waste of resources to teach Spanish that way in elementary school, because it really doesn't amount to much in the end, particularly if teachers change every year. So I would respectfully like to ask the Board of Education and Superintendent Capone to supply further information about the announced, I quote, comprehensive recruitment efforts, end of quote, conceived to meet district needs in Spanish. More specifically, in light of this year's 6-month vacancy, which left Bartle without any language instruction, what concrete steps has the district taken or will it take to ensure a high quality applicant pool and a successful hire? Has the district considered the long-term utility of hiring a full-time instructor rather than a part-time to allow for stronger articulation with middle school language instruction and increase exposure to world language for our elementary school pupils? Thank you very much for your kind attention.
So in response to that, one of the things that did happen at the beginning of the year, we had a scheduling issue where it was not a real attractive job, where the teacher that was teaching Spanish taught essentially for 2.5 days straight before having planning. because of the way that the contract is written, they don't have to have daily planning. And so when we lost that instructor, and you're looking at this being a hard-to-fill position based on the certification, and then it being a part-time position, that further complicated the issue. I can't say that filling the position this spring was we can't take credit for it. The only person that I would really credit with that is Trish Sanchez, who, recruited her mother to come back and provide instruction. So she deserves all the credit as far as getting that position filled and, allowing for that instruction to continue. To your point, we have posted the position as a full-time position going into next year, due to the fact that if you're going to have a high-quality instruction and it's in a hard-to-fill area, if there's positions available that are full-time and positions that are part-time, you're going to have a better time attracting a full-time candidate. And so it is a full-time position going into next year.
Thank you, Tim.
That's great. I'm really glad to hear that.
Just a question, protocol, do I have to sign in every time?
Yeah, just sign in again.
Kim Crane, HPEA President. I just want to state for the record that the association would welcome and embrace any sort of diversity training that was related to our educational goals. This is something that we've been asking for the last, I can't remember, for many, many years. We had diversity training years ago, and it's fallen off the charts. We really need refreshers in what's going on in our students' lives, in the culture of today's world. It's essential. And the Middlesex County, forget the name of the group, but Middlesex County has some very good avenues that you could explore for training for educators. And the presenters that we've had in the past were very good and very well received by our staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Is there any other public comment? Okay, we need a resolution to go into executive session at 6:30 p.m. on June 16th, 2014 at Bartle School to discuss personnel, litigation, and negotiations.
Dan, aren't we going in
Yeah.
to closed session now? Yeah. Oh.
We got to do this first.
Do this one first, and then we'll
So
do that
moved.
one. Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
We need a resolution to go into executive session immediately following this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.